What if the greatest threat to your future isn't failure, but the outdated version of you you're still protecting? Staying comfortable feels safe, but it's a slow, invisible death. Every excuse, every distraction, every pattern you refuse to confront is a chain keeping you trapped. The brutal truth? You either evolve or you slowly disappear into mediocrity. Kill the old you, burn the fallback plans, build the next version. Repeat relentlessly because the clock isn't pausing for anyone. In a few moments, I'll teach you how to force yourself to outgrow the old you and never look back again. The awakening moment. There comes a point in every person's life when the brutal truth becomes impossible to ignore. Staying the same is a choice. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's not the fault of circumstances, parents, the economy, or anyone else. It's a decision, whether conscious or unconscious, to remain where you are. And this truth is often uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth begins. Most people are seduced by comfort. Familiar routines, predictable patterns, and the safety of the known provide a false sense of security. But the harsh reality is this: comfort is a slow death. It creeps in silently, lulling you into believing that good enough is accepted. You stop stretching, stop striving, and settle into a version of yourself that feels safe but is far from your potential. Comfort disguises itself as peace, but underneath it's stagnation. The longer you stay where you are, the harder it becomes to move. Days become weeks, weeks become years. Before you know it, you're watching others live the life you once dreamed of, wondering why it feels like time passed you by. This is the trap. Life doesn't wait. The world doesn't pause for anyone. You either evolve or you stay trapped. There is no middle ground. Growth is not optional if you desire fulfillment, purpose, or success. The pain of change is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts a lifetime. The awakening moment comes when you finally understand that no one is coming to save you. No mentor, no friend, no motivational quote can drag you out of the mental prison you've built unless you choose to break free yourself. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it places full responsibility on your shoulders. Liberating because it means you hold the power to change everything. Look around at your life, your habits, your relationships, your finances, your health. Every part of it reflects a series of choices you've made or refused to make. If you're not where you want to be, it's not because you're incapable. It's because on some level, staying the same felt safer than risking the discomfort of growth. But ask yourself this: is the illusion of safety worth the reality of mediocrity? Growth is messy, it's uncomfortable, it demands sacrifice of time, energy, ego, and sometimes relationship. But it's also where life truly begins. The person you want to become is on the other side of everything you fear, and once you awaken to this, it becomes impossible to unsee. You start to notice the small ways you've kept yourself small. You begin to recognize that fear is not a wall, but a doorway. This is your moment. You can either continue numbing yourself with distractions, excuses, and temporary comforts, or you can step into the fire of transformation. One path leads to a life of what if. The other leads to a life where you become everything you were meant to be. The choice is yours. It always has been. Look in the mirror brutally. There is a moment in every journey of transformation when you are forced to do something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You have to stand in front of the mirror, not the physical one, but the internal one, and look at yourself with brutal, unfiltered honesty. No sugarcoating, no justifications, no pretending that things are better than they are. This is the moment where radical self-honesty becomes not just a concept, but a necessity. Most people live behind layers of stories they've told themselves for years, stories that explain why they're stuck, why they haven't succeeded, or why life feels heavier than it should. They blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, or even the past. But the truth is far simpler and far more confronting. You are where you are because of you. The patterns you've allowed, the excuses you've accepted, and the habits you've repeated are the architects of your current reality. It's easy to say you want change. It's easy to dream about a better version of your life. But change doesn't happen in fantasies. It begins with the courage to sit with yourself and ask the hardest questions. Where am I lying to myself? What patterns am I repeating that keep sabotaging my progress? What excuses do I run to every time things get uncomfortable? This kind of introspection isn't comfortable, but it is the price of transformation. When you start looking closely, you begin to see the invisible chains you've placed around yourself. Maybe it's the story that you're not good enough or not ready. Maybe it's the habit of procrastinating every time fear shows up. or the tendency to surround yourself with people who validate your comfort rather than challenge your growth. These aren't coincidences. They are choices, sometimes unconscious, sometimes deliberate, but choices nonetheless. The most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself, the ones that whisper, "It's not that bad," or "I'll start tomorrow," or "This is just who I am." These lies create an illusion of safety while slowly suffocating your potential. The longer you avoid confronting them, the deeper they root themselves in your identity. But here's the truth. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it disappear, it only makes it stronger. Every time you turn away from the mirror, the gap between who you are and who you could be widens. And the only way to close that gap is to face yourself fully, with no filters and no escape routes. Looking in the mirror brutally doesn't mean tearing yourself down or drowning in guilt. It means owning your reality completely. It means recognizing that while you may not be responsible for everything that happened to you, you are fully responsible for what you do next. It's about choosing to be the person who stops the cycle rather than continues it. This is the starting line, not the fake starting line where you make promises to change but do nothing. The real one, the one where change begins the moment you finally decide to tell yourself the truth, the prison of familiarity. There's a strange paradox about the human mind. It craves safety, predictability, and familiarity, even when what's familiar is slowly destroying it. The mind becomes addicted to patterns, whether they serve us or sabotage us. This is the prison of familiarity. It's invisible, it's comfortable, and it's the very thing that keeps most people stuck in lives far smaller than the ones they're capable of living. What's familiar feels safe, but safe doesn't always mean good. People stay in jobs that drain their souls, relationships that dim their light, and routines that suffocate their growth. Not because they don't know it's damaging, but because it's what they know. The mind would rather deal with predictable pain than risk the uncertainty of change. It convinces you that the discomfort you already understand is better than the unknown discomfort that might come with transformation. This is why so many cling tightly to their limitations. They've worn these limitations like armor for so long that they start mistaking them for their identity. I'm just not disciplined. I've never been good with money. I'm not the type of person who can change. These aren't facts. They're stories, reinforced by years of repetition, backed by the seductive comfort of the familiar. To challenge these beliefs feels threatening because on a subconscious level, it means stepping away from the version of yourself you've always known. The mind resists this. It fights for the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. This is why people return to bad habits the moment life feels uncertain. This is why someone can leave a toxic relationship only to find themselves back in another one that feels eerily similar. It's not because they enjoy suffering. It's because suffering, when familiar, feels safer than stepping into the unknown. But here lies the great danger. When comfort becomes the ultimate goal, growth becomes the casualty. You cannot have both. Growth demands discomfort. It demands stretching beyond what you know, beyond what's easy. It asks you to abandon the version of yourself that fits neatly within the confines of your past. And that's terrifying for everyone. Choosing familiarity over growth is the slowest form of self-betrayal. You trade the possibility of who you could become for the fleeting relief of not having to change today. But the price is steep. Years slip by, potential is wasted. Dreams become distant memories you stop believing in, not because they were impossible, but because comfort convinced you to stop trying. Escaping the prison of familiarity isn't about a single massive leap. It's about recognizing when you're choosing the known over the necessary. It's about noticing the moments when your mind whispers, "Stay here, it's safer," and having the courage to respond, "Safe isn't good enough anymore," because the life you're capable of, the life that's waiting on the other side of fear, can never be built inside the walls of comfort. The only question that remains is simple. Will you choose the familiar cage or the freedom of growth? Declare war on the old you? There comes a point when personal growth stops being something you merely talk about, wish for, or casually pursue. It becomes a fight, a deliberate, aggressive rebellion against every version of yourself that has ever settled, procrastinated, avoided, or made excuses. Growth is not passive. It never has been. It is an act of war against the old self, against the patterns that have kept you small, against the comfortable lies that whisper, "This is just who you are." People like to romanticize growth. They frame it as something soft, gentle, or inspirational. But anyone who is truly transformed knows the truth is far messier and far more violent than that. Growth requires you to confront the parts of yourself that you've spent years protecting. The laziness disguised as rest, the fear disguised as caution, the self-doubt dressed up as humility. You don't outgrow these things by accident. You destroy them systematically, intentionally, and relentlessly. To change your life, you must first declare that the old version of you is no longer welcome. The you that procrastinates until tomorrow, the you that breaks promises to yourself, the you that lowers standards to avoid disappointment, that version has to die for your future self to breathe. And no one else can do this for you. No mentor, no book, no motivational speech. This is your war. You either pick up the sword or you stay exactly where you are. A mindset of transformation is not polite. It doesn't negotiate with mediocrity. It doesn't ask for permission. It rejects stagnation like the plague because it understands that to stay the same is to betray the future self that's waiting. Every day you wake up, you are faced with a choice. Defend the identity you've always had, or fight for the identity you've never met but desperately want to become. This fight isn't about perfection. It's about refusal. Refusal to keep living beneath your potential. Refusal to let fear dictate your choices. Refusal to let another day pass under the illusion that you'll start tomorrow. There is no tomorrow for the old you. That version is living on borrowed time the moment you decide you've had enough. Understand this: your future self is not some distant fantasy. It's a very real version of you that's waiting, watching, and depending on the decisions you make right now. That future you demands that you fight. Fight the comfort, fight the doubt, fight the old programming that wants to pull you back every time you try to rise. This isn't a one-time declaration. It's a daily battle. Some days you will win, some days you will falter, but the war is won by those who refuse to lay down their weapons. Those who understand that growth isn't something that happens to you, it's something you force into existence by being relentless, ruthless, and absolutely unwilling to accept anything less than transformation. The old you has had enough time. It's over. It's done. Declare war. Outgrowing comfort zones. The comfort zone is a liar. It pretends to be a sanctuary, a place of safety, familiarity, and ease. But in truth, it's a cage. Not one made of steel or stone, but of invisible bars constructed from fear, routine, and the seductive pull of what's known. You don't notice the bars at first. They're subtle, disguised as habits that feel harmless. The same routines, the same conversations, the same thoughts that quietly whisper, "Stay here. It's safer here." But safety comes with a cost. The cost is stagnation. The cost is potential left unexplored. The cost is waking up one day realizing that comfort quietly became confinement. Nothing new grows in the comfort zone, only the illusion of stability. Growth, evolution, reinvention, none of these things live inside those boundaries. They wait for you just beyond the line where comfort ends and discomfort begins. Every meaningful version of your growth starts the same way, by stepping directly into discomfort. Not around it, not waiting for it to disappear, straight into it. Discomfort is not a signal that something's wrong. It's the first undeniable sign that you're expanding beyond who you've been. It's the friction between the current version of yourself and the next one that's trying to be born. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They mistake it for danger, failure, or weakness. But discomfort is none of those things. It is data. It's proof. Proof that you are stretching into spaces you've never been. Proof that your brain is rewiring, that new skills are forming, that old identities are cracking under the pressure of growth. If you aren't uncomfortable, you aren't changing. It's that simple. Think back to any point in your life when you truly leveled up, whether it was learning a new skill, taking a risk, walking away from something toxic, or choosing discipline over indulgence. None of those moments were comfortable. They were laced with fear, doubt, and the ache of uncertainty. And yet, looking back, they were the moments that built you. Every transformation has discomfort as its currency. But here's the mistake people make. They believe that the goal is to escape discomfort, that if they work hard enough or succeed fast enough, they'll earn the right to return to ease. But growth doesn't work like that. Each comfort zone you outgrow simply gives way to a new one, slightly larger, but governed by the same rule. The next level of you lives just beyond it. The more you lean into discomfort, the more you realize it doesn't break you, it remakes you. What once felt terrifying becomes your new normal, and then the process repeats. Growth isn't a single event, it's a lifelong commitment to choosing the edge over the center, expansion over retreat, and potential over protection. Outgrowing comfort zones isn't just a phase, it's a mindset, a relentless refusal to let comfort become a coffin, a deep understanding that discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the clearest sign You're exactly where you need to be to become who you were always meant to become. Furthermore, burn the escape routes. There's a dangerous habit that most people adopt without realizing it, the habit of leaving escape routes open, quiet little back doors in their minds, mental exits, labeled. If this gets too hard, I'll quit, or if it doesn't work out, I'll just fall back on plan B. At first glance, it feels responsible, even smart. Who wouldn't want a safety net? Who wouldn't want a backup plan just in case things fall apart? But the brutal truth is this: leaving those escape routes open is the single fastest way to guarantee failure. When your mind knows there's an easy way out, it will always choose it the moment things get difficult. It doesn't matter how motivated you are at the beginning. Motivation is fleeting. The moment obstacles appear, the mind starts whispering, "Why suffer? You don't have to do this. You've got another option. Just go back to what's comfortable." And with that whisper, your commitment starts to crumble. This is why people so often fall back into old patterns. They tell themselves they're trying to change, but they keep one foot in their old life, just in case. They dip their toes into growth, but never jump fully in. They say they're serious about building something better, but their actions betray them. They keep the job they hate while trying to build the business. They hold on to toxic relationships while working on themselves. They keep the excuses on standby, like lifeboats, in case the ship of their transformation starts to rock. But growth does not reward the half-committed. The universe has a way of testing whether you mean what you say. And if your energy signals hesitation, doubt, or a willingness to retreat, the results you want will stay out of reach. You cannot negotiate with transformation. It demands something more brutal, more absolute. It demands that you burn the escape routes. This doesn't mean reckless leaps without thought or preparation. It means a decision so deep, so final, that going back is no longer an option. It's cutting the ties to every excuse you've ever leaned on. It's dismantling Plan B and throwing it into the fire. It's destroying the fallback options that exist only to cushion your failure, not your success. When there is no way back, the mind stops looking for exits and starts searching for solutions. You fight harder. You think differently. You show up with an intensity that only exists when you know failure isn't a detour. It's the end if you let it be. That's when breakthroughs happen. Not when you're playing safe, but when you've committed fully, recklessly, relentlessly. The moment you decide that there is no plan but the one you're building now is the moment everything shifts.